The board met in closed session, and there was a unanimous vote. The board approved a settlement agreement for classified employee number 5496. Now I will call to order the regular meeting of the Sierra Sands Board of Education. We will start with the pledge to the flag led by our student member, Regina Safey.
Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we'll have a moment of silence. Thank you. Take us to item 1, adoption of the agenda. Any changes?
I have several changes, Mr. Rockwell. I know it makes the board work harder, and I apologize. We'll clean this up a little bit for the future. We have several special concurrent items, and they'll be heard as follows. We'll hear special concurrent items 3.1 and 3.2 after regular item 6.3. We'll hear special concurrent item 2.1 after regular item 7. Special concurrent items 4.1, 4.2, and 4.3 after regular item 8.3. Special concurrent item 6.1 after regular item 10. Special concurrent items 5.1 through 5.4 after regular item 11.2. And special concurrent items 7.1 and 7.2 after regular item 13.4.
Okay, so noted. Thank you. Item 2 is the approval of the minutes of the special meetings of September 7th, 2022 and August 19th, 2022, and the regular and special meetings of August 18th, 2022. Any concerns over the minutes from anybody? We're good to go there. There are no programs and presentations tonight, so we'll move on to public hearing. Item 4.1, public hearing and adoption of resolution number 72223, statement of assurance of sufficient textbooks and instructional materials and certification that pupils are provided with standards-aligned textbooks and instructional materials. Dr. Savko.
Good evening, President Rockwell, members of the board, Dr. Ostash, Superintendent, staff, and community. Education Code 60119 requires a local education agency to conduct a public hearing and make a determination through a resolution as to whether each pupil in each school in the district has sufficient textbooks or instructional materials, or both, in each subject that is consistent with the content and cycles of the curriculum framework adoption by the State Board. The public hearing shall take place on or before the end of the 8th week of school. District and site personnel have determined that sufficient textbooks or instructional materials, or both, have been provided and will continue to be provided in accordance with Education Code Section 60119. All students have standards-based aligned textbooks and instructional materials in history, social science, math, science, and English language arts for the 2022 school year. Additionally, sufficient textbooks or instructional materials were provided to each pupil enrolled in world language and health classes. Laboratory science equipment was available for science laboratory classes offered in grades 9 through 12. There are no financial implications. The superintendent's recommendation is to adopt Resolution 07-2223, certifying that each pupil in each school in the district has sufficient textbooks or instructional materials and is in compliance with Education Code 60119 regarding standards-aligned textbooks.
Thank you. Any objections to opening up a public hearing from the board? I see none. We will open a public hearing based on the clock in the council chambers at 7:07. Seeing nobody jumping up, we will close public hearing at 7:07 and a half.
pardon me, sirs. Is there any motion to adopt this resolution?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We will have a roll call vote on this one. Mr. Scott? Aye. Mr. Ferris?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Dr. Hauk? Aye. It's an aye for me, so it's unanimous. Thank you. That'll take us to reports and communications. Item 5.1, student members report. Ms. Safey.
Murray Middle School. Last week had a focus on patriotism, with several student organizations preparing to participate in the community's parade of 1,000 flags, Red, White, and Blue Spirit Day, and a class competition Friday. Over the last several weeks, students have had several Spirit Days like Career Day. ASB hosted the first of many morning pep assemblies to talk about the end of the year Spirit Party and the use of ASB cards. The ASB cards are especially helpful now that our cross-country and volleyball teams are in full swing, participating multiple times a week. Good job, students and coaches, persevering and finding ways around this crazy heat. Coaches are working hard to include as many students as possible, even creating a first-ever practice team to move players up as spots become available. Lastly, Rachel's Link is delivering inspiring lessons to advisory as students are submitting final assignments for the first progress reporting period ending on the 9th. Good work, Mustangs, keeping demerits and tardies low while keeping grades and attendance high to be eligible for the dance on the 16th. James Monroe Middle School. The first progress reporting cycle is upon us at Monroe, which means we are preparing to begin our intervention and enrichment cycles in advisory. The focus has been on social emotional learning and needs up to this point, along with site expectations and norms. Our focus will transition first to English language arts support, then to math support over the first 2 cycles, which will each be 3 to 5 weeks. Monroe's first dance was last Friday, where we welcomed attendees to Hollywood. It was well attended by almost 300 students, and everyone was dressed for the red carpet. Volleyball kicks off their season this week with a friendly game against the school staff on Wednesday afternoon. The players have been working very hard, looking forward to a fun season overall. Mesquite High School. We have had a busy first month of school. We celebrated our first graduate of this school year. Our back-to-school night was August 25th, which gave us an opportunity to hold a barbecue for parents and district personnel as well. ASB also put on our annual back-to-school barbecue for the student body. We served hamburgers and hot dogs at the end of the day as a way to welcome our students back and jumpstart a successful school year. Students had their first credit check of the school year, where we also acknowledged our first Golden Dragon Award recipients, which is part of our PBIS program. Every 3 weeks, Mesquite has a credit check. The student who earns at least 1 credit in each class have a 92% attendance rate or better and have 0 official referrals are considered our Golden Dragons. They receive PBIS points they can redeem at our student store as a reward. ASB students are busy planning school events and Spirit Days. We will hold a Red, White, and Blue Spirit Day Friday in remembrance of 9/11. Our next big event will be the Fall Festival at the end of this October. Sherman E. Burroughs High School. It has been an exciting month for Burroughs. Football's first game on August 19th was kicked off with a mini rally and BHS Pride Day, where students wore Burroughs apparel. On the 24th, in remembrance of Kobe Bryant, students wore purple, gold, 824 or other Laker merchandise. The fall rally was last week, and the theme was Coachella, nicknamed Rallychella. To go with the music festival theme, there were Spirit Days from Tuesday through Friday, including Rockfest, Woodstock, Stagecoach, and Coachella. Spirits are high in preparation for homecoming next week, as students are excited to continue homecoming traditions like Painting Bee Mountain, Amazing Race, Hoko Dodgeball, Powder Puff, Float Building, the rally, the football game, and the homecoming dance. This year's homecoming floats theme is A Night at the Movies. Each class float will be based on a different movie. Accompanying these activities will be Spirit Days such as A League of Your Own, where students can match their outfits with their friends, Class Colors Day, Float Themes Day, and Blackout Day. Tomorrow will be Club Day. At lunch, students will set up booths in the quad and encourage others to join their various clubs, including robotics, art, drama, news writing, video games, board games, archery, Avid, book club, and community service. In addition, the first academic progress check was on the 9th, and parents can expect to receive reports in the next few days. The fall sports season is in full swing, and PSAT testing, as well as the ASVAB, will be held in early October.
Great, thank you very much. Takes us to 5.2, reports from members of the board. Mr. Johnson.
I just have a quick addition to the meeting. Over the last couple of weeks, we had a special board meeting talking about both Richmond and Pierce construction ideas for the future, and I look forward to, I think there's people here to talk to about tonight, but look forward to getting public opinion for the board as we make this important decision for the district. Thank you.
Dr. Houck, anything? Okay. The only thing I'll say is I want to thank staff and community for weathering our transportation challenges over the last few weeks. Sort of when it started, it kind of was breathtaking to hear what was happening, and I know that made life real hard for a lot of people, and thanks to everyone who battled through that on the front lines. That'll take us to item 5.3, Superintendent's Report. Dr. Ostash.
Thanks, Mr. Rockwell. I have a little something to say about transportation in a minute. So our first of our 10 monthly enrollment and attendance reports actually always start in October, but I thought I'd give some initial reflections on what we're seeing within enrollment and attendance. It looks to us like we're kind of, so we had been losing some students the last couple of years, most likely due to complications with pandemic and such. But we're on an upward trend, and it looks like we're now around the same number we were in 2019. So to give you an idea, the first month in the 2019-22, the 2020 school year was 5,144 students. Then in 2020 and the 2021 school year, we dipped down to 4,949. And then in 21-22, we were at 5,042. And then this year, it looks like we're somewhere around 5,150. So we're looking much more like we were 3 years ago. So, so the trend is positive, and that's a good thing. So we'll have our first official report next month. I want to add, you heard Dr. Savko in item 4.1. We had a public hearing and an adoption of a resolution regarding Williams. I want to acknowledge that we had heard several months ago that we would be selected. We were so fortunate. We'd be selected that 6 of our school sites would be actually reviewed, on-site reviewed on the campus for what's called a Williams Settlement Site Review. And so like I mentioned, 6 of the schools were visited by a team of peers throughout the county for sufficiency in facilities and instructional materials for all students. And I do want to especially thank Dr. Savko and Mr. Shane Herbert for really kind of helping to spearhead both sides of the house on those visits. Of course, all of our principals and all of our staff for ensuring 100% success, which is really pretty impressive. So Gateway Elementary, Inyo Kern Elementary, Pierce, Burroughs High School, Murray, and Monroe were the sites who were all visited on, the second week of school on August 16 and 17. And so that added a lot of stress, but I'm really proud to report that we had no findings for correction. And I just want to say that the Williams Settlement Site Review and all of the criteria associated with what they inspect is pretty extensive. And to have no findings is something we should really celebrate and really just appreciate our staff for doing such a great job all the time. And I think Dr. Savko mentioned in our Superintendent's Council that in a certain way it shouldn't be exceptional, and we shouldn't celebrate that we are just doing our jobs well. But on the flip side, you just appreciate the day in and day out high quality of our staff and the commitment to doing the right things. I do want to acknowledge, thank you, Mr. Rockwell. I want to acknowledge the transportation update. That has been a real challenge. For some families, it has been a seriously massive impact, and obviously for many families, it was no impact at all. But for those families for whom it was an impact, I just want to say that I'm really sorry. We started the year, not fully staffed. We don't have an adequate number of bus drivers, even on a full, if every single one of our bus drivers is there, we're not fully staffed. Our director of transportation, Ellen Robinson, is amazing, and she drives every single day, and that's not a driving position. She's not supposed to be driving. So I want to compliment the transportation department for working through a really difficult challenge, and they did fight to get back, and now we're back to what is normal, but we are not fully staffed. So I do want to highlight something. The district and CSEA Chapter 188 leadership have a tentative agreement for an incentive for bus drivers, and that we're hopeful that their membership will ratify this MOU in the coming days. It's a recruitment bonus of $1,500 that would be paid out over the first 3 months of employment, so $500 a month. And the concept behind the bonus, it's called a bonus, but the concept is, to be factual, is it would just simply be a mechanism for paying just a tad over minimum wage for the, we have 11 candidates in our Sierra Sands provided training, bus driver training. And it's approximately 80 hours of classroom and behind the wheel training. And we have never paid candidates for the training because they're not yet employees. And so we really don't have a way of doing that. But we all know that there's a national shortage in transportation, bus drivers, and it has significantly changed the environment for how districts consider ways of recruiting and retaining. And it's kind of a complex thing to consider because every employee group, everyone matters. Nobody's more or less important. But when you're at such a severe need where you can't run all of your bus routes, we do have to be thoughtful about how we partner with CSEA and with our employees. And so we'll see how that plays out. But the $1,500 bonus would just really be a mechanism to sort of, in a sense, end up paying those candidates for having put in 80 hours of unpaid training. Let's see, classroom visits. On a real positive note, I want to highlight it's a significant investment of time, and it's some of the best time that I invest. As I try to do a few times a year, I try to go through, of course, I'm on school campuses, regularly all the time. But as far as actually going through and visiting every single classroom and saying hello to students in every single school, I've been able to rotate through many schools as of today. I've been to Richmond Elementary in Las Flores, Mesquite, Burroughs, Inyokern, Pierce. Today I visited Gateway, and tomorrow I visit Murray. And then by the end of the month, I will have visited all 10 with Monroe and Fowler coming in. And it's just such a privilege for me to see the incredible work. It just blows me away, the collaboration that occurs, particularly among, well, we have a collaboration throughout the district, but the way that we intervene and the way that we provide both Tier 1 and Tier 2 instructional services, particularly at the elementary school sites, it just is amazing. It blows me away. I can't believe, I do believe, but I can't believe just how great our faculty and staff are. And I just can't overstate that fact. Today was cool. On my tour at Gateway, I saw fourth graders studying the effects of the environment on the mealworms ecosystem. We might get some pictures on our Facebook. The students are observing the mealworms as they emerge into darkling beetles. And they're encouraged to record their findings in their science journals, which they do. And it's fun to see who's grossed out and who's not. And it's just super fun, and just to see the inquiry and the engagement and the hands-on education, and then putting that into literacy and recording the findings, it's just really quite awesome. And of course, when I'm on campus, I get the questions, wow, you're tall. How tall are you? Are you Mrs. Bergen's husband? Are you? That was today. Fill in the name of the principal when they're ladies. Are you the boss of the school? Those kind of questions are always the same. And I've really never come up with really clever answers. I just kind of nod and smile, and it's fun. We held our first Superintendent's Council meeting last week on Thursday. Thanks, Mr. Johnson, for being there. Mrs. Naslin decorated and arranged a lovely brunch for all of us. We had a great turnout. We have designated parent representatives from each of our 10 schools, and we're collecting nominations for president and vice president, and we already have at least 1 or 2 nominations, and so I'm just really excited about the energy and the participation and the support that we're getting from parents. And just a couple more announcements. We of course have a school board election coming up, as there are the election for all kinds of offices. We have 2 upcoming events. There's a school board candidate forum to be held at the City Council chambers on September 29 at 5:30. This is an event that's sponsored by the Ridgecrest Chamber of Commerce, by the Ridgecrest Area Association of Realtors, and the IWV Economic Development Corporation. So again, that's September 29 here at 5:30. And then there's a board candidate orientation that my team and I are inviting all 8 candidates to join, if they wish, to be held at the Sierra Sands District Office at 113 Felspar on October 5 at 6:15. And then my last update is we belong to the California School Boards Association. All 5 of our board members belong, and we are registered. All 5 members are registered for the annual CSBA conference that's coming up in a couple months. And I just want to highlight that our board has always been extremely engaged in the policies and the advocacy associated with CSBA. A couple of our members, Tim Johnson, is a delegate on the CSBA Delegate Assembly. The Delegate Assembly is CSBA's, it's a vital link in the association's governance structure. Working with local districts and county offices, the board of directors and executive committee delegates ensure that the association reflects the interests of school districts and county offices of education throughout the state. And there are 2 required delegate assembly meetings each year. And so I appreciate Mr. Johnson being a delegate for some time and bringing advocacy and making every attempt to impact policies in ways that, help reflect, our community. And then Mr. Bill Ferris is actually, he's a regional director for Region 12. I think of that as like a state director role. And the board of directors sets the direction for the association by establishing the vision, mission, and strategic directions, and ensuring that the association's activities remain focused on those goals and the issues identified in the policy platform. And so it's just my pleasure to highlight that the board is extremely active and takes a strong role in making sure that we can essentially fight and advocate for what would make sense for our community. So I appreciate that. Thank you. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Rockwell.
Great, thank you, Dr. Ostash. Always informative. That'll take us to item 5.4, report to the Board of Trustees by the Desert Area Teachers Association.
President Rockwell, members of the board, Dr. Ostash, community and staff. Hello. I'd like to start this off with something kind of light, funny. I'm not funny at this moment. I had a 2.5-hour rehearsal, and it's Thursday. So if you want any lines from all my sons, I can do that for you. But I don't have anything else, except that the weather is glorious. And I have to say, I went outside my classroom today to eat my lunch, and all the kids were like, "Did you get thrown out?" But it was great. I love this weather, and if any of you had anything to do with it, keep it up. I like it. I hope next month when I'm here, I'm like in a pair of boots and a sweater, but I don't want to hope too much. Before these meetings, I tend to do a little text to the exec board and say, hey, is there anything in particular that you want me to say and to get out there? And I got 2 texts like right away, immediately. And the first one was just that teachers are working under a lot of stress this year, and the special ed teachers have their own set of stressors. And I think it's really important to point that out. All of us teachers, we do different things throughout the day, but we all have, at the end of the day, the same amount of work and the same level of stress. It's just what that looks like. But I did want to point out, since it was brought up, that the SPED teachers are struggling a little bit, and I think it's important that we acknowledge that. And then the other text was about this Pierce-Richmond merging, and the hope that the teacher input is heard and really valued. And I think that what a lot of us feel is that when it comes to decisions about what happens in a classroom or what happens in a school regarding students, whether it's the curriculum or something a little bit bigger about how classes are organized, we as a group tend to feel that our voices aren't heard. And we're the ones that are standing up there every single day with those kids, right? And I know that you understand that we're good because you're hiring us and we're getting the reviews and we're still here. So I think you realize that we are experts at what we do, and that's what we're supposed to be, right? But I think that sometimes it's kind of easy to push us aside and sort of not pay attention to us. And as teachers, we're people who are naturally prone to kindness and to accommodation and to putting others ahead of us. And I think, you know, sometimes that doesn't serve us well because we don't speak up. And I think it's easy for that to, whether, you know, often unintentionally, to sort of exploit that. So I just wanted to bring that up to keep listening to us. I'm going to keep talking regardless, so hopefully you'll at least hear my voice. That's it. Hope you're enjoying the weather as well.
Thank you very much. Item 5.5 is a report to the Board of Trustees by the California School Employees Association.
Hello, School Board President, Board members, Superintendent, Dr. Ostash, staff, and community. During our monthly meeting this past week, we had some members voice some concerns, and I'm here to bring them to you. First and foremost, safety concerns in two parts. First being how they are treated, safety concerns in two parts. First, how they are treated by students and parents and not having support. Second, being school safety, as some do not feel safe on their campuses in light of recent events that have taken place, like the Uvalde school shooting. Several campuses are not closed off and pose big threats to not only our students, but the safety of all of our employees. In recent weeks, we've had a school go on lockdown per se, but most staff didn't feel like they knew what they were doing. They don't feel like they have been trained properly in lockdowns or active shooters and any other possible threats. It was also voiced at the meeting that the classified staff do not feel valued. It is stated often that we couldn't do it without our classified staff. However, it is not apparent to the classified staff that we are valued. Stress levels are at an all-time high everywhere, and more is being put on the staff we do have since we are so shorthanded. We continue to lose staff due to stress levels and low pay. We have lost staff recently to fast food restaurants due to them paying above minimum wage. I don't know what the solution is. However, I do feel that we need to work together to figure one out sooner rather than later so we do not continue to lose valued employees. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That takes us to item 6.6, communications from the public. The board will provide time during the discussion of each agenda item for members of the public to comment. At this time, members of the public may address the board on an item not on the agenda. Comments should relate to items of public interest within the board's jurisdiction. The law prohibits the board from taking action on items not on the agenda. If appropriate, your comments will be referred to staff for response. When addressing the board, please state your name at the podium and limit your remarks to 3 minutes. In accordance with the board bylaws, the board will limit the total time for public input to 30 minutes. Those wishing to address the board beyond the 30-minute time limit may do so at the end of the scheduled meeting agenda. So we'll open public comment at 7:32 by the clock on the wall.
Hi, I'm Vicki Peach, 335 East Church, an employee of the district, school bus driver. I'm just here to add to some of the things that were already said. I have a handout for each of you, which is the requirements of what it takes to be a school bus driver. if I can hand that out real quick. Am I gonna lose time on this? Are you gonna be fair and give me a couple minutes? Okay. I'm sorry. I don't know if that's enough. Okay, I did highlight some things. So, transportation professional. The advantage of being a school bus driver, you're not stuck in an office. You work with kids, time off when kids are not in school, and it's perfect for the driver enthusiast. Disadvantages. We have to set aside 10 to 12 hours a day to get anywhere from about 7 to 8 hours. Right now, we are working more because we are so short. The other disadvantages are low pay, unless you have put in the years. September 3rd, I believe it is, I'm on my 20th year with you guys. Disciplinary issues with students. Sometimes it's not just with the students, it's with parents. I am in a special needs bus, first time I've taken a special needs route in 19 years. There's reasons why I stayed on a big bus. Limited physical movement. We are stuck in this little tiny, worse than a jail, this little tiny space for hours on end. What does it take to become a school bus driver? That's where the handout comes in. In this handout, Sierra Sands Unified School District, it lists the training requirements, classroom. I am also a state certified behind the wheel instructor for the state of California. The training requirements, the classroom instruction, the behind the wheel, it says a minimum of 20 hours. Most people do not get it in 20 hours. It usually takes longer. The next one down, we have to deal with DMV, and it shows all the different things for DMV. School district requirements. That's you guys. CHP. I was gonna bring the manual, but I had packed my training stuff. The manual's about this thick. And it goes on, there's another one, Ellen hands these out in training also. It gives a timeline of everything that's required, like your fingerprints, your background. It could take up to 17 days, but this goes on to go into like 60 days. The last one shows different licenses. A school bus driver is the highest licensed people transporter in the state of California. We are above youth bus, SPAB, GPPV, farm labor vehicle, which falls under that, and also VDDP. Is that my time? No! Okay, I will be back, because I want to educate you guys on this.
Thank you.
I'm Marie Andrews, 228 North Alvord. I am a Sierra Sands school bus driver. I'm a retired funeral director, and I took this job because it was supposed to give me some extra money to travel, which I like to do. Unfortunately, this past year, we haven't been able to travel, and I was going to retire this year, but things happened in Russia and in China, so we canceled the trip. If I retired and the other two drivers who are planning on retiring next year, you're going to be 3 drivers down. One of the things I want to talk about is the bus itself. I was driving a full-size bus, regular general ed, and I had the group out in Brown Road. And I couldn't figure out when they hired me, because I had driven in the 70s and 80s for Orange Unified School District, why I got such a really good long run, which was lots of hours. One day on the job, I figured it out. One of the things that happened just 2 years ago before we shut down, it was Christmas. I was driving down Inyo Kern Road, and all of a sudden, I had the smell of weed wafting through the bus. And I got on the radio, and I said to Melanie, I said, I need someone to meet me at the school, and this was at Burroughs, because I have an illegal substance on the bus. When we came around the corner and they saw the cops, the windows dropped and things went flying out of the bus. So anyway, and then the other day, I'll get back to that one, I switched over to the special need buses. The people who are the aides on the buses are amazing. You're driving children that have seizures, they are on breathing tubes, they have food tubes, they have respirators. If they go into a seizure, you have to time it. And at 3 minutes, if the seizure is still going on, you have to call 911. Then, if the seizure is still continuing, you get that child down on the ground and without embarrassing the child, take a suppository, which is called Distat, and shove it up their rear. So how many people, get $15, $16 an hour to be that proficient in taking care of a seized child or a child who is not breathing? I drove for Bakersfield Superintendent of Schools, and they actually had a small child die on their bus 4 or 5 years ago. The driver and aide did everything they possibly could, but you would not want that to happen. That's why you have to have the best trained people to handle these special need and fragile children. Ellen Robinson is doing an incredible job. The air-conditioned buses, the small ones, are supposedly air-conditioned, but the other day in this heat, they can't keep up with the heat. The bus I was driving, like I said, I switched from the big bus back to the small bus just because of this. The air temperature inside, the guys at the garage checked it. It was 89 degrees inside the bus, and the floor of the bus was 120 degrees. And that's what we're driving in. When I got in the big bus today to start General Ed route again for the afternoon run, I was drenched in sweat. And like I said, I plan on retiring this year, but because my trips got canceled, I'm gonna hang in there for another year, but by next year, you're gonna have a real problem. So that's what I'd like to say. Otherwise, I enjoy the job. I like the hours. I like the people I work with. They are amazing. And they've been coming in, you know, you're dying, but you know, if you don't get there, there's nobody gonna drive the kids. And that's why the job has to pay more. And I don't even know if paying more would actually help as much. It's just a job that you have to love. You have to be able to get up at 5 in the morning or 4 in the morning. Thank you all.
Hi, my name is Danielle Bertrand. I'm also with Transportation as a school bus driver. My address is 620 West Up John Space 34. What I want to bring today is we all had a meeting today with Ellen. She put it straight and simple. She's all, you guys want our days? You guys want vacation days? You guys want sick days? You guys want time off to spend with family or trips? Too bad. That's pretty much what she said to us today, because we are so short on drivers, because you guys don't pay enough. I looked at the national average in the state of California. The starting wage for somebody like us is $18.85 an hour. I don't even make that right now. The people that are coming in are only making minimum wage. They're better off going to McDonald's and flipping burgers. A heck of a lot easier position than what we face. Second, I was one of the ones that did not get COVID, so I dealt with the front lines of when we had so many people out. I had a parent almost sideswipe me in my bus because I did not stay longer than 3 minutes at her house. And she blared her horn, pulled me on the side of the road on Mahan, busy street, and she jumped out of her vehicle calling me every name under the sun because I did not stay that extra minute. So not only do we deal with teachers getting mad at us for not picking up kids on time at the school districts, we're getting yelled at by parents on the sidelines. Then we have to deal with the kids who have to sit on the bus for 2.5 to 3 hours at a time in the heat on these hot buses, and I feel that we deserve a lot more. The stuff that we have to go through, you guys don't see at all. I mean, there's been times where John Cosner has offered to drive a van so he could pick up kids from school, from their home, or bring them to school. We've had Mr. Pierce, who was the principal of Murray, who has actually taken a van and has picked up kids from school because we were so short-handed. We need to figure something out because this pay is hard, and it's getting harder and harder every day to deal with the stuff that we have to deal with and actually stay and enjoy what we do. And that's all I got to say.
Gonna move that a little bit. Kim Van Neville, 135 South Broadway, teacher at Richmond for 27 years. The July 2019 earthquakes damaged all of our schools to some extent, but none more than Richmond. Richmond was permanently closed within the month. The staff at Richmond was devastated, but we diligently packed up and moved to the VWIG site as soon as repairs were completed. We lost many things with the closing of Old Richmond, as we call it. The Richmond Annex was designed for special education students. With its closing, we lost spaces that were made for special needs students, enclosed patios, larger classrooms, changing facilities, along with a grass field, large playgrounds, shade, an AV-equipped large meeting space that were all used by all students. The Richmond staff and students have endured facilities that do not meet the needs of our student body for 3 years. Those of us on the design team spent many unpaid hours coming up with a design for New Richmond. After many revisions, we have a design that will meet the needs of all of our students. We've endured 3 long years of waiting and delays. Now, the district wants us to wait even longer and combine our school with Pierce, creating an elementary school larger than either of our middle schools. It's insulting that the staff of the 2 affected schools were not told about this idea when it was first proposed. After finally being told about it during a staff meeting, we took a vote. The vote was unanimous, no to a supersized Richmond Pierce. There are many published studies that show elementary schools larger than 500 students are detrimental to student learning as well as school culture and result in more behavior problems. Our special education students often have difficulties forming friendships. Our inclusive culture at Richmond focuses on helping with those connections. That would be difficult in a school of over 900 students. I shudder when I think of over 150 TKK students trying to make friends. That number of students could not safely be on the playground at one time, thereby requiring playground shifts for each grade level. Students would have difficulty forming friendships, thereby damaging our school culture. The advantages that the district is citing do not outweigh the negative effects for our students. Richmond says no to a supersized school. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Brandy Kean. I live at 348 Rose Street. Good evening, Dr. Ostash and members of the board. I've had the privilege of working with the students of Sierra Sands for the past 25 years. This is my 25th year. Most of my time has been spent at Richmond, and I stay at Richmond because I really do believe in our mainstreaming model. In many ways, the students and families at Richmond have made me a better teacher and a better human being. I'm here this evening to express my concerns about consolidating Pierce and Richmond in order to build a supersized school. While you might be tempted to vote in favor of the supersized school because it might be less expensive to operate than 2 independent schools, and building costs might be cheaper, I ask you to consider what will the cost be to students. Currently, Richmond has around 400 students, most of whom I know by name. I greet them at the gate every morning with a smile and a positive comment. This act helps students and families feel connected to Richmond. School connectedness determines the degree to which students feel supported and cared for by teachers and staff. This theory highlights that relationships formed in a smaller setting are crucial. Hundreds of studies have found that smaller schools build strong communities. Richmond works hard to build these communities. We serve general education students in addition to our military and special education connected families. Small schools build strong communities. With the supersized school projected to serve close to 1,000 students, mind you, Murray in comparison has 700, and the average California public elementary school has 500, it will be impossible for me to know all students by name when they walk through the gate. It'll be hard to make close connections. How will you ensure a positive school climate and pupil engagement, both of which are state priorities with this proposed number of students? Hundreds of studies have found that students who attend smaller schools outperform those in large schools on every academic measure, from grades to test scores. I implore you to proceed with the original Richmond plan as it currently exists. projected to house approximately 500 students. Bigger is not always better. It should not be money versus students. The staff at Richmond opposes the supersized school. All of us are firmly against it. If you are here tonight and you feel that the supersized school is not in the best interest of our students, please stand with me and let Dr. Ostash and the board know. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Scott Miller. I live at 341 East Wilson, and I'm here as a private citizen this evening. Dr. Ostash, I don't know if you can even answer this question. I don't know the protocol. You mentioned earlier we have 11 bus drivers that are in training. Will that fix the current shortage of bus drivers?
That's a great question. There's no way of knowing that all 11 of the candidates would actually end up becoming employees and bus drivers.
Perfect world. Would that fix it?
Well, we wouldn't hire 11 drivers because it would overstaff us. So basically, to answer your question, we need to have 12. We would need to have 12 drivers to be fully staffed.
So 13. So 13 with a backup, or is that 12? 12 standard with no backup.
12 would be well staffed, and sometimes we usually, in the past we'd have some substitute bus drivers who can kind of fill in so that we can run our field trip. It's much better for us to be able to use our own staff to run field trips.
So. I'm not familiar with the budget and all that stuff like that with the school district, unfortunately. However, I would encourage you to overstep by at least 2 with the world we currently live in. Part 2, again, as a private citizen, I heard about the super school happening, and I very seldom say this, absolutely nothing anybody could say could convince me that's a good idea. To have 1,100, 1,200 students in one school, 1,000 students, whatever it is, it's more than 500 at one school. I think lunch would start at 9:30, something like that. And as somebody mentioned, there'd be you'd have to rotate through the playground. That's tough. I'm definitely a hard pass on that. Go with the original program. I am imploring you to do that. I cannot imagine. I went to a high school that had 1,200 students. It's a lot of people. So imagine now you have a bunch of kids who are maturing, let's say that. And we have, I've heard rumors about bullying issues and short staff issues. So just pretend we have a short staff issue and we're gonna put 1,000 people, we're gonna have 1,000 kids at the school with short staffed. That's kind of terrifying. Just my opinion. Thank you for listening. Have a good night.
Marie Andrews again, 228 North Alvord. Part of his question, he said we have these
Yeah,
people.
sorry.
I can't? Okay.
Yeah, you've
I
already
just wanted
spoken.
to say that for Bakersfield Superintendent Schools, they had 20 people in their class and only 4 finished the class. The attrition rate's really bad.
Seeing no other takers in line, we will close public comment at 7:51. Takes us to Educational Administration 6.1, approval of the consolidated application for funding categorical programs for the 2022-23 school year. Ms. Decker.
Good evening, President Rockwell, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Ostash, staff and community. The consolidated application is used by the California Department of Education to distribute categorical funds from various state and federal programs to county offices, school districts, and direct funded charter schools throughout California. Annually, each local education agency submits the spring release of the application to document participation in these programs and provide assurances that the district will comply with the legal requirements of each program. Program entitlements are determined by formulas contained in the laws that created the programs. The consolidated application must be reviewed and approved by the local governing board and by the District English Language Learner Advisory Committee. Signatures from committee members indicate that the committee members have read, discussed, and had the opportunity to provide input on the application being submitted and the applicable legal assurances. The winter release of the application is submitted in January of each year and contains the district entitlements for each funded program. Out of each state and federal program entitlement, districts allocate funds for indirect cost of administration, for programs operated by the district office, and for programs operated at schools. The following federal and state programs are included in the Consolidated Application Part 1 for application and reporting requirement purposes. We have the Certification of Assurances, the Application for Funding, the LCAP Federal Addendum Certification, Protected Prayer Certification, Nonprofit Private School Consultation, Substitute System for Time Accounting, and the Title III English Learner Student Program Subgrant Budget. The Consolidated Application Part 1 requests approximately $2,189,642 in funding for the programs listed below. Final funding allocations are received in the fall. Title I Part A, which is improving basic programs, is approximately $1,771,315. Title II Part A is supporting effective instruction, which is approximately $245,688. Title III Part A, English Learner, is approximately $39,156. And Title IV Part A, Student Support, is approximately $133,483. The Local Control Accountability Plan must be submitted to the California Department of Education as part of the process for receiving categorical federal funding. It is recommended that the board approve the Consolidated Application Part 1 for submission to the California Department of Ed.
Move recommended action. Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any questions or comments from the board? Or the community? You're reaching for your mute button, Dr. Howe? Okay. All right, hearing no comments, we will have a vote. Mr. Scott? Aye. Mr. Ferris?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Dr. Howe?
Aye.
And it's an aye for me, so it's unanimous. Takes us to 6.2. Approval of an additional service agreement with Solient for a DHH teacher for the 2022-23 school year. Mr. Delbick.
President Rockwell, members of the board, Dr. Ostash, members of the community, and fellow staff. Background information: according to state and federal laws and regulations, school districts are required to assess students who have been referred for special education services in all areas related to the suspected disability. A student must be assessed when first referred for that suspected disability, and then considered for reassessment at least once every 3 years after qualifying for special education. After the parent or guardian signs the consent for assessment plan, the district has 60 days in which to complete the assessment and hold an IEP team meeting to discuss the student's eligibility. If the student qualifies for special education services, the district must provide those services according to the student's IEP or individual education program. Schools all over the United States are experiencing severe shortages of deaf and hard of hearing, or DHH, teachers. This shortage is due in part to limited number of openings in graduate programs and the increased need for DHH teachers as the scope of their practice widens. School districts are feeling this shortage the most. Sierra Sands had contracted with Kern County Superintendent of Schools for DHH teachers for many years. On or around August 8th, 2022, Kern County Superintendent of Schools informed us they would no longer be providing DHH services due to a severe shortage of DHH providers. Kern County Superintendent School has 11 positions for DHH teachers and has only filled 3 of those positions. Subsequently, they can no longer provide Sierra Sands with DHH teachers for the 22-23 school years. DHH services were scheduled to start for students on August 8th, 2022. The district would like to enter into a contract for 10 hours a week for a DHH teacher with Solient. Solient provides virtual DHH services. The therapy is provided by a licensed DHH teacher qualified in the state of California. Financial implications, the estimated cost of the therapy service is .25 full-time employee, which is 10 hours a week, $90 an hour for 35 weeks. Approximately $31,500. This will be paid through the special education budget. It is recommended that the board approve the additional service agreement with Soliant for a DHH teacher for the 22-23 school year.
Got a motion and a second. Any questions or comments from the board or the community? Seeing none, we'll have a vote. Dr. Hauk?
Aye.
Mr. Scott? Aye. Mr. Ferris?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
That's an aye for me. It's unanimous. Takes us to item 6.3, approval of a contract with PBS Corporation for registered behavior technicians and board-certified behavior analysts to meet current special education needs of the district. Mr. Dillon?
Yes. Background information. There's a need to supply special education classrooms with registered behavior technicians and board-certified behavior analysis to ensure all student safety and access to their curriculum. SSUSD currently does not have enough RBTs and BCBAs to meet the current needs. Current considerations, there's a need for Sierra Sands to contract for RBTs and BCBAs to be used in special education classrooms. Since these RBTs and BCBAs will not be employees of SDSU, we will enter into an agreement with Positive Behavior Supports Corporation, which provide up to 5 RBTs and 1 BCBA needed this school year while safeguarding the interest of the district. The cost of this, financial implications, the cost to the district for these behavior services for the 2023 school year will be $480,000. This will be paid out of the special education budget. It is recommended the board approve the contract with PBS Corporation.
Move the recommended action.
Got a motion and a second. Questions from the board or community? I'll call for a vote then. Dr. Hauk?
Aye.
Mr. Scott? Aye. Mr. Ferris?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson? Aye. That's an aye for me. Unanimous, thank you. Let's see, we'll move to the concurrent agenda. Item 3.1, approval of the MOU with Cerro Coso Community College.
All right, thank you. Background information. The district would like you to enter into an MOU with Sierra Costa Community College for LVN students to shadow district RNs for 1 day as part of their final rotations. Sierra Costa operates curriculum in subject areas that are related to health services, which require students to engage in observation and clinical practice at facilities such as those maintained by the district. It is to the mutual benefit of both parties that students of Sierra Costa use the facilities of the district for their clinical laboratory learning experience. Current consideration, the district is in need of LVNs and would like to start using Sierra Costa LVNs once they graduate from the program. The MOU would enable Sierra Costa LVNs to see the district programs and enable the district to meet potential LVN candidates. Financial implications, there are no costs to the districts associated with this MOU. Recommendation, it is recommended that the board approve the MOU with Sierra Costa Community College.
Got a motion and a second. Any questions or comments from the board? Only thing I'll say is I'm a big fan of any time we can leverage our local educational systems to intertwine and help us help each other out. So it's a great opportunity for that, it sounds like. Any questions or comments from the community? Seeing none, we'll have a vote. Dr. Hauk?
Aye.
Mr. Scott? Aye. Mr. Ferris?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson? It's an aye for me. Motion carries unanimous. Item 3.2, approval of the MOU with Ridgecrest Regional Hospital, Liberty Ambulance, and Sierra Sands Unified School District. Mr. Wythe.
Good evening, President Rockwell, members of the board, Dr. Ostash, staff and community. For a little background information on this, as you know, it's been a challenge to serve our students through the mental health services that we have available to us in our community. Year back, we provided 2 FTE positions that we had a very hard time filling. At this point, we have 1 of those positions filled. This MOU between Ridgecrest Regional Hospital and the school district would allow us to gain supervision for our professionals who are associates and not licensed professionals, but have the qualification to become licensed professionals. It also provides access for professional development and supplemental educational supports that would support our students and our professional needs, creating a healthy and supportive educational culture for our students. The current considerations for this is the staff development of behavioral and mental health, the licensure supervision for select service providers requiring licensure hours to perform their professional practice, the supplemental education support to promote healthy, safe school environments, and provided and established partnerships with the health community, allows us and promotes opportunity for grant funding opportunities, and then other funding opportunities through the federal funding program. So it also promotes access to state reimbursement for services that are directly directed towards direct student services and provided through district personnel. The financial implication of this is for the district is $1,500 per month as long as the agreement is upheld. The funding source for this would initially start with ESSER funding or expanded learning funding opportunity grants. Like I said prior, once we start getting the reimbursement from the state for the services directly rendered through our service providers, it would be self-sustained. The superintendent's recommendation is to approve the memorandum of understanding between Ridgecrest Regional Hospital, Liberty Ambulance, and Sierra Sands Unified School District.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any questions from the board or the community? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. Dr. Houck.
Aye.
Mr. Scott. Aye. Mr. Ferris.
Aye.
Mr. Johnson.
Aye.
It's a aye for me, so it's unanimous. Thank you. We'll go back to the regular agenda. That'll take us, no, yeah, well, you're right. You stay in the special agenda for item 2.1. We're bouncing around. This is always
It's all right,
exciting.
I like to move.
So item 2.1, approval of revisions to Board Policy Administrative Regulation 5141.21, administering medication and monitoring health conditions. Mr. White.
So we have reviewed selected board policies and administrative regulations as a result of recommendations for revision from the California School Board Association's Policy Service. All proposed policy administrative regulations reflect the recent changes in applicable state and/or federal laws and regulations. The current considerations of BP and AR 5141.21 are as follows. So alignment with the updated laws and regulations, broadening the scope of administered medications to be more inclusive of preventative and emergency rescue medications more commonly used by students or needed by students, updated to include opioid this is a good one for me, there you go, rescue medications, thank you. And then it does exclude the administration of medical cannabis to students. I can go into that more if you have questions. And then in collaboration with entities such as Smith Medical Partners, LLC, and local health authorities, it will give us the opportunity to receive the opioid rescue medication free of cost. The financial implications are, there are no financial implications at this time. If necessary, the district safety funds will be used to purchase supplies. is the superintendent's recommendation to approve the revisions to the Board Policy Administrative Regulations 5141.21, administering medication, monitoring health conditions as presented.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any questions from the board? Quiet night. Questions or comments from the public? Hearing none, we'll have a vote. Dr. Hauk?
Aye.
Mr. Scott? Aye. Mr. Ferris?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson? Aye. And it's an aye for me, so it's unanimous. Now we'll go back to the regular agenda, go to Personnel Administration.
Second.
We got a motion second on 8182. Let's have a vote. Dr. Hauk?
Aye.
Mr. Scott? Aye. Mr. Ferris?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson? It's an aye for me. So that is unanimous. That takes us to 8.3, adoption of resolution number 92223, Week of the School Administrator. Mr. Ald.
President Rockwell, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Ostash, staff, and community. The California Department of Education encourages districts to recognize the second full week in the month of October as Week of the School Administrator. This is California Education Code Section 44015.1. In observance of the importance of educational leadership at the school, school district, and county levels, the second full week in the month of October of each year shall be designated as Week of the School Administrator. School districts, or schools and school districts and county superintendents of schools are encouraged to observe the week with public recognition of the contribution that school administrators make to successful pupil achievement. California has approximately 15,000 certificated and classified administrators who provide leadership and support to the educational programs of California's public schools. Resolution number 092223 declares the week of October 9th through October 15th, 2022 as the Week of the School Administrator in the Sierra Sands Unified School District. The resolution also declares that in Sierra Sands Unified School District, certificated and classified administrators provide support to our schools, programs, and students in many ways. They develop and implement curriculum by selecting textbooks and instructional materials. Site administrative teams ensure that effective and innovative classroom instruction is promoted on a daily basis. Certificated and classified administrators manage departmental and site budgets and maintain school and district facilities. District administrators provide student transportation and nutrition programs to our students and their families, as well as guidance and staff development that improve teacher effectiveness in the classroom. It's the superintendent's recommendation the board adopt resolution number 9 as presented and approve October 9th through October 15th, 2022 as the Week of the School Administrator in the Sierra Sands Unified School District.
Move the recommended action. Second. We have a motion second. Mr. Al, could you read that resolution for us?
Sure.
Thank you.
Whereas leadership matters for California's public education system and the more than 6 million students it serves, and whereas school administrators are passionate, lifelong learners who believe in the value of quality public education, and whereas the title school administrator is a broad term used to define many education leadership posts, such as superintendents, assistant superintendents, principals, assistant principals, special education and adult education leaders, curriculum and assessment leaders, school business officials, classified educational leaders, and other school district employees as considered administrators. And whereas providing quality service for student success is paramount for the profession, and whereas public schools operate with lean management systems, and across the nation, public schools employ fewer managers and supervisors than most public and private sector industries, including transportation, food service, manufacturing, utilities, construction, publishing, and public administration. And whereas school leaders depend on a network of support from school communities, fellow administrators, teachers, parents, students, businesses, universities, community and faith-based organizations, elected officials, and district and county staff and resources to promote ongoing student achievement and school success. And whereas research shows great schools are led by great principals and great districts are led by great superintendents, These site leaders are supported by extensive administrative networks throughout the state. And whereas the state of California has declared October 9th through 15th, 2022 as the week of the school administrator in Education Code 44015.1. And whereas the future of California's public education system depends upon the quality of its leadership. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the governing board of the Sierra Sands Unified School District that all school leaders in the Sierra Sands Unified School District be commended for the contributions they make to successful student achievement.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Any questions or comments from the board or the community? All right, I'll call for a vote. Dr. Hauk? He got shy. He pushed the camera button instead of the mute button. Occupational hazard. You're back.
Yes, aye.
Aye, thank you. Mr. Scott? Aye. Mr. Ferris?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
That's an aye for me, happily also. That takes us to special concurrent agenda, item 4.1, which is over on this piece of paper over here. All right, we've got a motion and a second on 4142. Questions or comments? Then we'll call for a vote. Dr. Hauk?
Aye.
Mr. Scott? Aye. Mr. Ferris?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
That's an aye for me. That takes us to concurrent agenda 4.3, approval of memorandum of understanding with the California School Employees Association and its Ridgecrest Chapter 188 titled GPS and Video Surveillance. Mr. Alt.
Many school districts throughout the state and nation have installed GPS tracking units on district vehicles and buses. In addition, many have also installed video and audio surveillance units on buses. The benefits of adding these units to the district's white fleet and buses include, but are not limited to, location tracking, also information for parents regarding where the bus is and if it would be late, and for investigating any allegations. Current considerations: because the addition of the GPS and video surveillance units represent a change in working conditions, the district and CSEA were required to negotiate the impact of the addition of these units. The district and CSEA and its Ridgecrest Chapter number 188 have agreed to a GPS and video surveillance MOU, which has been ratified by the members of Chapter 188. The financial implications: the cost for the equipment and its installation is approximately $54,000 with an annual fee of $30,000 or $2,500 per month. Funding will come from the general fund. It's the superintendent's recommendation that the board approve the memorandum of understanding with the California School Employees Association and its Ridgecrest Chapter 188 titled GPS and Video Surveillance as presented.
Move with recommended action.
Got a motion and a second. Questions or comments from the board? Mr. Scott?
I'd just like to make a comment. I'm glad to finally see this. I think we heard tonight previously on some instances where this would have come into play. I think anytime you have video surveillance, it kind of reduces those problems when you know that you're being videotaped. So nice to see.
Yeah, I would concur, especially after hearing some of the comments earlier tonight that, you know, driving a bus is a hard job. It'd be nice to provide some support this way. I think it's long overdue. Any other questions or comments from the board or the community? Same rules apply. State your name and you've got 3 minutes.
I'm Danielle Bertrand. My address is 620 West Up John Space 34. That's such a wonderful idea, right? Make our jobs harder. I just told you guys a little story about the parent who chased me down and was blaring their horn, and they were honking and almost sideswiped me. Can you imagine the parents that are gonna follow us because you have allowed GPSs on our bus? That's all I've got to say.
Any other questions or comments? All right, I'll call for a vote. Dr. Houck? Oh, no, I'm sorry. We, just in time, under the wire.
Brandy Kean, 348 Rose Street. It's just a question that, so the GPS, doesn't it just let, I'm not trying to discount that at all. I've actually just seen, I think, a version of this with my nephew who lives out of state, and it kind of gives you like an ETA of when the bus is coming. Is that the kind of system, like it lets you know, like, hey, your route's gonna be 30 minutes late, so they kind of have an idea when the bus will be there, or no? Sorry.
All right, no problem.
Because that was pretty cool when I saw it.
I'll attempt to answer that. In actuality, the technology department is responsible for the implementation of this. The reason that I'm involved is because of the working condition piece. We do have a platform that would be able to track GPS and would be able to let parents know if a bus was running behind. We would have to choose to use that. And I think at this point, we would also have an implementation process. And so that particular feature wouldn't be available immediately. And it also would be a choice because we choose what we allow parents to have access to.
Yeah, thank you for that. That was actually the question I was going to ask, because in all the material that I saw in the header and the attachments, it didn't talk about displaying GPS location of buses to anybody. Sounds to me like that's not really part of the plan at the moment, unless there was some other discussion later about implementing that, right?
At this moment, no, that would be down the road.
Right, okay, thank you. Any other comments, questions? All right, I'll call for a vote. Oh, one more, Kevin? You people are giving me whiplash.
I just have a comment on being in past districts. Sorry, I have a hat on. I was getting cold.
Can we get your name?
Oh, I'm sorry. Heather Orozco. My address is 232 Purdue Avenue. I work at Burroughs for a special ed classroom. In support, so that the bus drivers are aware, in the past I have had to deal with parents making accusations about children getting hurt on the bus. And because they had video recording, it proved that their accusations were false. So it protected you guys. So on that aspect, I support it. So just so you're aware. And then the GPS, just so we're clear, the parents do not have access at any time to the exact location of the buses, just estimates. Is that what we were saying? If they choose to use it?
We're being told here tonight that none of us will know the GPS data. It's being used internally, and unless we have a different conversation and decide that we want to publish it some other way.
That's an additional component that is possible, but not planned currently.
Okay. Any other questions? I'm going to pretend to say I'm going to take a vote just to see if anybody else is coming. All right, call for a vote. Dr. Houck?
Aye.
Mr. Scott? Aye. Mr. Ferris?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
And it's an aye for me. So that's unanimous. Let's see. So that takes us, where are we here? I'm looking. So we're going to, that's after item 10, right? Is that where we're at? Yeah, got it, okay. Thank you. Sorry, too many pieces of paper up here. We will go to construction administration under the concurrent agenda, which is item 6.1. It's the adoption of resolution number 112223 to enter into agreement with Elite Modular to extend a lease agreement for 3 relocatable classrooms at Richmond Elementary School pursuant to the Savannah School District's district-wide contract number SSPU number 40-04/2020-2021. You get the award for the longest title of a board item of the evening. Mrs. Smith, congratulations.
Thank you so
Over to you.
much. President Rockwell, members of the board, Superintendent Ostash, staff and community. There is a typo on this because what we are doing is asking to extend the lease agreement for 3 years, not 2 years, so I apologize for that. But as you know, after the earthquakes and the damage that Richmond sustained, we were tasked with bringing that school over to the Buick campus, and it was necessary to bring relocatable classrooms over there to support that. And the lease is up on this particular set of relocatables, and we would like to extend it for another 3 years.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any questions or comments from the board? This looks similar to some things we've seen over the last few months.
Yep.
Any questions or comments from the community? Seeing none, we'll have a vote. Dr. Hauk?
Aye.
Mr. Scott? Aye. Mr. Ferris?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson? Aye. That's an aye for me. That takes us to 11, business administration. Item 11.1, approve an equity lease agreement with Enterprise Fleet Management for 2 Ford F-150 trucks. Mrs. Smith.
So as we've discussed in previous meetings, the board had approved an agreement with Enterprise to lease our white fleet. Due to supply chain issues and such, they have been trickling vehicles in. We have a master list that shows the oldest or highest mileage vehicles, and they are able to get these 2 trucks, which would replace 2 vehicles in the information technology department that are older and high mileage vehicles. The current considerations are we received a quote for 2 F-150 trucks from Enterprise, and the existing vehicles will be sold at auction or by the district at a future date. We're waiting until we have several to sell before we try to hold one of those sales again. The financial implications, the delivery price for the 2 vehicles, $82,852.28, with a monthly cost of $1,571.72, and funding for these vehicles would come from Fund 01 General Fund.
Got a motion and a second. Any questions or comments from the board or community? We will then have a vote. Dr. Hauk?
Aye.
Mr. Scott? Aye. Mr. Ferris?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson? Aye. That's an aye for me, so it's unanimous. Go to item 11.2, adoption of resolution number 82223 to enter into an agreement with Verco for furniture for Burroughs High School pursuant to the U.S. Communities 2022 contract R-TC-18004, modification 6, classroom furniture contract.
So there's a need for furniture at Burroughs High School for the 22-23 school year. In particular, there are stools used by the art department that are falling apart and can no longer be repaired. And so primarily this purchase is to replace 75 stools used by the art department and then 2 teachers' desks that are no longer functional. So the quote received from Verco for the purchase of the furniture is $16,338.17, and the funding will be funded by Fund 01 General Fund.
Got a motion and a second. Any questions or comments from the community? Seeing none, we'll have a vote. Dr. Hauk?
Aye.
Mr. Scott? Aye. Mr. Johnson? Aye. Mr. Ferris?
Aye.
It's an aye for me, so that's unanimous. So we will bounce back to the concurrent agenda, item 5.1, adoption of resolution number 102223, establishing the appropriation limit. Ms. McGuire.
Good evening, President Rockwell, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Ostash, staff, and community. The GAN limit, named for Paul Gann, the author of Proposition Number 4, which amended the state constitution to establish this limit, is intended to constrain the growth in state and local government spending by linking year-to-year changes in the expenditures to changes in inflation and population. Inflation for these purposes is currently the annual percentage change in California's per capita personal income. For school agencies, change in average daily attendance is used as a measurement of the change in population. Established in 1979 following the enactment of Proposition 13 and subsequently amended by Proposition 111, the GAN limit applies to the state of California, cities, counties, and special districts, as well as school districts and county offices of education. Education Code Section 42132 specifies that each governing board shall adopt a resolution to identify the estimated appropriations limitation, or GAN limit, for the current year and the actual appropriations limit for the preceding year. Further, the section requires that the documentation used in the identification of the limits of the appropriation or calculations shall be made available to the public. The Sierra Sands Unified School District has calculated its GAN calculations as part of the 2021-22 unaudited actuals on Form GAN. A copy of this calculation is attached. GAN limit calculations, as required by Proposition 4, did not require cuts to government spending, but rather limited the growth of government spending to be no faster than the growth in population and inflation. This action has no financial impact in that the calculations are based on a formula established by state law. It is the superintendent's recommendation that the board adopt Resolution Number 10, 2223, establishing the appropriation limit as presented.
Recommended action.
We've got a motion and a second. Questions or comments from the board or the public? I thought people would rush the stage on this one. Seeing none, we'll have a vote. Dr. Hauk?
Aye.
Is a riveting topic. Get you going. Mr. Johnson?
People asleep.
Mr. Ferris? Aye. Mr. Scott? It's an aye for me, so it's unanimous. That takes us to item 5.2, approval of the district's unaudited actual financial report for 2021-22. Ms. McGuire.
The unaudited financial report is a state-required report that presents the district's financial activity for the 2021-22 year compared to the estimated actuals projected through June 30th, 2022. The report contains comparative data regarding the general fund's estimated year-end totals presented at the time of the 22-23 budget adoption and the unaudited actual results of all funds for the 2021-22 fiscal year after the books have been closed but before the official audit. Variances and elements of revenues and expenses in the general fund are associated with several factors. Education Protection Account, or EPA, allocation changes during the last quarter of the fiscal year affect the overall district plan to utilize other sources of funding, such as Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, CARES, and the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund, ESSER. Other factors that affect planned expenditures are the ongoing issues with contractors performing services as a result of staffing shortages and delayed equipment delivery. The estimated actuals were prepared under the assumption the district would receive an EPA allocation of approximately $13 million. During the preparation of the unaudited actuals, the actual amount of EPA funding was received at $23.5 million. Since EPA funds must be applied towards instructional elements, an additional $10.5 million of EPA funding was applied to salaries and benefits, whereas the estimated actuals assumed a significant portion of salaries and benefits would be funded by CARES and ESSER funding. This caused significant variances between the estimated actuals and the unaudited actuals in salaries and benefits. Contributions to special education were less than anticipated due to using EPA funding and ESSER funding to defray these costs. It was necessary to borrow $5 million from Fund 17 to meet expenditures in the general fund. The temporary loan was repaid in June of 22 at year end. The district continues to meet the GASB 54 reserve requirements, and the dollars residing in Fund 17 are committed for cash solvency purposes. Funds 11, 12, 13, 14, 20, 21, 25, 35, 40, and 51, all ending balances are committed for the specific use of the fund and no other. Fund 14, 21, 25, 35, and 40 continue to be committed for use by the district in its facilities and maintenance initiatives. The funding residing in the Inyo Kern Schools Financing Authority are committed to district facility needs. Following guidance from the governing board, Sierra Sands Unified School District has been able to maintain a positive ending fund balance as well as its board's required 5% reserve in the unrestricted general fund. The district continues to deficit spend in the out years, and it will be necessary to develop continuing fiscal recovery strategies over the next several years. It is the superintendent's recommendation that the board accept the district's unaudited actual financial report for 2021-22 as presented.
Recommended action.
Got a motion and a second. Questions or comments from the board?
Just a
Dr. Howe?
quick comment, and a thank you. Putting this together is an important part of the financial cycle every year. Lori, it's a lot of work to put it together, and thank you for doing all that.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments from the public? Seeing none, we'll have a vote. Mr. Ferris?
Aye.
Mr. Scott? Aye. Dr. Hauk?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
It's an aye from me also, so it's unanimous. Thank you, Ms. McGuire. Lots of work. Takes us to 5.3, approval to enter into a contract with Papa John's for pizza products for the 2022-23 school year. Mrs. Smith, I thought you would have brought some samples so we can check and see how this was going.
So Sierra Sands serves pizzas as lunch options during the school year. The district solicited requests for bid proposals for pizza products for the 22-23 school year, and bid proposals were placed in the Daily Independent, the Bakersfield Californian, and the Antelope Valley Press. We received bids from Papa John's and Domino's Pizza, and Papa John's was selected as lowest bidder. The cost per pizza is $9.47, or approximately 95 cents a slice. It is anticipated that the district will purchase 3,000 pizzas during the school year for a total estimated cost of $28,410, and the funding for this
Before you move the recommended action, could I be the one to move this recommended action? I just thought it might be nice.
I'm sorry, I was going to say we have two motions for, yeah, and we have a second. That's good.
Bill makes the motion.
Yeah. I'm just getting hungry, that's all. Let's see, we'll take, well, do anybody in the public have a comment? Other than, are they irritated at Mrs. Smith for not bringing pizzas tonight too? Yeah. All right, we will call for a vote. Dr. Howe?
Aye.
Mr. Scott? Aye. Mr. Ferris?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
That's an aye for me, so. Motion carries unanimous. 5.4, approval to purchase wheelchair accessible van for adult transition class at Burroughs. Mrs. Smith?
So the district offers an adult transition class at Burroughs High School this year, and it is necessary to have a wheelchair accessible van for students to travel to various work and adult skills opportunities. We did attempt to lease a vehicle from Enterprise Fleet Management. We talked to the local Ford dealer, and they referred us to a Ford fleet sales organization, and we were not able to find a wheelchair accessible van. Creative Bus Sales sent the district information about the availability of an electric wheelchair accessible van. Public Contract Code will let us purchase this van without going out for bids if the board approves it. Because it's an electric van, it comes with a level 2 depot wall charger, and we have assessed that there are the appropriate facilities that we could put that electrical charger very near the building where the class is held, so they would be able to charge it outside the building. The estimated cost for this, or the van purchase, is $112,068.04. We're estimating some electrical modifications to be no more than $10,000 for a total cost of $122,068.04, and the purchase will be funded by special education funds. It is superintendent's recommendation that we enter into a purchase agreement with Creative Bus Sales for the purchase of the electric wheelchair accessible van for the 22-23 adult transition class at Burroughs as presented.
Got a motion and a second. Any questions or comments from the board? I guess my only question, just clarification. So the electrical modification here, it's not to the bus, right? It's to the facility
It's
to
so
be
that you
able to
can-
provide the charging for the bus.
Correct. There's like a
Okay.
voltage thing they have to do with the panel.
That's
It's
the
about as
technical
technical as I know.
All right. Yeah.
Mhm.
Got it. Okay. Any questions or comments from the public? And let me clarify. I'm not sure exactly all the rationale for the change, but you probably all like it. All we require now is your name. We don't need the address anymore. So, but yeah, I mean, you can tell us, it's okay, but it's not required.
Danielle Bertrand again. We would like to know what this van will be used for. And also, okay, and also if that will be taking work away from us bus drivers who are looking for extra work. We do field trips and that kind of stuff.
Heather Orozco, this is my class that it's being purchased for. It will allow me to take all students, regardless of physical disability, to the community. My job is to transition students from the classroom to out in the community where they will no longer, when they leave Burroughs, they will no longer have access to the school, and that's all that they know, is being at school. So this allows me to give them experience and teach them independence as much as possible, and to exposure to work sites, job sites, such as, right now I'm working with Ridgecrest Cinemas, Ernie's Farm Eggs, which is actually head by one of my past students. It's his farm. We assist with cleaning and stuff. Out to shopping, grocery shopping, Walmart, we go to restaurants. This is all done without their parents. So this allows them to be more independent and be exposed to as much as possible for a transition into adulthood. I highly recommend it because it allows all of the students access. Without this wheelchair van, I will not be able to service all of my students, which then is a civil rights violation of not offering them the same level of education that all students deserve. If you have any more questions about the class, I could answer, if anybody wants to ask. Bus drivers, I would appreciate more people to drive because I can only drive one van, and I cannot force any para to do it. A paraprofessional, it is up to if they feel secure enough to drive the vans. Yes, they will go out 4 days a week is what I'm aiming for.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. That's a big help. All right, any other questions or comments? I keep wanting to say all those in favor. Dr. Hauk.
Sorry about that. Yes, aye.
Mr. Scott. Mr. Ferris.
Aye.
Mr. Johnson. Aye. It's an aye for me. That's unanimous. So we will temporarily adjourn the Sierra Sands Board of Education meeting, and we will open up the Inyo Kern Schools Financing Authority. That's this one. And we will start with item 1, adoption of the agenda. Any changes?
No changes.
That'll take us to item 2, approval of minutes of the regular meeting of August 18th, 2022. Do we have copious changes we need to address this evening? Nope, seeing none, we'll go to item 3, adjournment of that meeting, and we will reconvene the regular meeting of the Board of Education. And that'll take us to item 13. Does that include 13, 1 through 4, and concurrent 7, 1 through 2? It does. We've got a motion and a second on the consent calendar.
I'd like to make a comment, if I could.
I would love it if you would.
I think it's really nice to see some of the...
Can you speak into the microphone? I'm not sure.
Oh, sure. I think it's really nice to see some of the things coming back that we haven't had available to our students, to have opportunities for exposure to the rest of the world and culture, and opportunities to network and meet people outside of the district, and opportunities that we've just missed for several years. So it's nice to see those things in. Several of them are the travel for the cheer team to the Citrus Bowl in Orlando, and then traveled by some members of the cheer team to London, England. So great opportunities for kids that they may not otherwise have, other than what the public school system provides.
If I may follow up on Mr. Ferris there, the items he's talking about, I think it's also important to recognize the support of the community. Many of these, I just froze again, didn't I? Many of these opportunities to travel are a direct result, it would seem, from donations from the community. So I think it's important to also recognize that and say thank you.
Yep, great points all. So we have a motion and a second on the entire consent calendar. Dr. Hauk?
Aye.
Mr. Scott? Aye. Mr. Ferris?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
It's an aye for me. Takes us to item 14, future agenda. Any topics we want to add to the list, or have we had enough?
I just want to make sure that we open up public comment at the end again, before we adjourn.
We didn't go to the 30 minutes. We stopped when people were done. So, okay. That takes us to item 15, adjournment. The next regular meeting of the Board of Education will be October 13th, 2022. Thank you all for coming. Really appreciate you all showing the care for our students that you have to come here and speak. Thank you.